There we go. Now I'm back. The internet went out. But again, I'm answering questions from the Skool community. If you'd like to support, you can always send a super chat and I'll answer your question there, should you wish to. When I run out of questions on the Skool, of course, I'll answer questions from here, as long as they're good and they're helpful to everybody. Um, oh, I forgot. Breathe deeply, relax. It's always a good thing to do. See if you have tension in the shoulders. Oh, hello, my friend. Thank you. Long time no see, my friend. No, I'll get into the question straight away from the Skool community, of course. So, I just found out that breathing less is healthy and breath hunger is like doing reps in the gym. Now, my question is, doing calm air hunger increases CO2. What are the benefits in the body to this? Well, this I've already answered in the video because I'm guessing you saw the breathing video. So, CO2 is first and foremost an antioxidant. It quenches reactive nitrogen species. It leads to vasodilation, so you get better blood flow. If you do have low CO2 levels, you'll have more vasoconstriction. The blood won't go where it needs to go. And the Russian doctors observed that when they did the, let's say, breathing exercises with people, they usually got a more fuller face, fuller lips, better blood flow to the extremities, etc. And the last thing would be that you need CO2 to knock hemoglobin, this oxygen off of hemoglobin, which means that without CO2, you can't deliver oxygen to the cells, or more specifically to the mitochondria. So CO2 is absolutely necessary for oxygenation. Again, that's called the Bohr effect. And the Wim Hof method supposedly does the opposite. Again, I go over this in that video as well. It removes CO2 and makes your body go alkaline temporarily. Yeah, exactly, temporarily. And that's why it's not good. You don't want to do it. You want to do it systematically, breath by breath. Not, removing the CO2, actually increasing the CO2. That's really what you want to do. So does that mean Wim Hof method is bad? Yes. Which one is the best and how should I go about doing these breathing practices? Again, that's all that's outlined in the video. I would recommend doing reduced breathing, so buteyko breathing. There's a book called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McCowan, I believe. That one's great as well. It's built on buteyko. All that is good. How should you go about it? You just do a session every day, maybe 30 minutes of reduced breathing, light air hunger, and then you're good. Next question. Do you think that naturally, so in parentheses, isolated primitive living at the perfect latitude for them, again, we adapt to environments, clean water, perfect food, good air quality, we are supposed to or are able to live to 120, 130, 160. 120, 130, we've already lived to. I mean, Gene Calmet lived to that, even outside of a primitive environment. Again, not everything with a primitive environment is necessarily good. There are things in modern society that, are quite nice. Some great natural disaster happens, so you can just, take your car, go far away, or go to the airport if you're in time, you know. But do I think humans can live to that extent? I can't remember what his name is. There was this farmer, something Shiralov, wasn't it? There was this guy who apparently lived to, yeah, Shirali Muslimov. Apparently he lived to 168. I have no idea. Then there's also Li Qing Yuan, I believe. He lived to like 256, which is a interesting number. I think that's 2 to the power of 8 more specifically. Do I know if they lived that long? I don't know. Gene Calmet, we know. So can humans live to 120? Oh, definitely. 130, 160, I personally have no evidence of that. There is that video by Varis Ahmad where he talks about the, can't remember what, no, not the Circassians, it was another group. No, the Abkhazians. In Abkhazia, there was this woman that was celebrating her 135th birthday or something like that, and her son was 100 years old. I think that may be true. Who knows? The doctors who checked their ages in that region, they said that they said that biologically it made sense. But again, do I know? Not really. This is just information to go off of. Or well, I guess if I don't know, what I'm gonna do is present data, which I did in answering the question, which means I didn't really answer the question. I just presented data. But then again, that's all I can do here. Next question. What do you believe is the leading cause of hair loss in young men today? Oh, I already made a video about that. And how would one go about reversing it according to your knowledge? That's a topic that's a bit too big for something like this, in my opinion. But basically, so I made a video, right? And I was saying a short about hair loss where I said that blue light was the main issue, blue light and EMF. And some people wrote, yeah, but people were balding 1,000 years ago. So what do you mean, Jones? And to that I go, I can see many, many ways of being very stressed out 1,000 years ago as well, chronically. And would your hair fall out in that scenario? Yes. Psychological stress by itself, we know already, like everyone knows, makes you bald. You see a person going through a very tough time for a long period of time, they lose their hair. This is well known, 1,000 years ago and today. Okay? So excessive cortisol. Okay, so what causes excessive cortisol in modern society? Many things. It could be psychological. But then again, you have things that affect you psychologically quite a lot. I mean, the microbiome is going to be one of them. But am I saying that those are related? No, I'm saying blue light and EMF are what are gonna spike your cortisol in an unnatural manner, in an unregulated manner, and chronically, without it ever going down. Now, I would also say that there needs to be a balance between cortisol and melatonin, and so usually these things also drop melatonin down. So if they're dropping melatonin down, you just removed your most important antioxidant. Is that related to hair color as well? And from what I understand, probably hair growth. Yes. So that gives you another mechanism when it comes to blue light. Does that also tie into hypothyroidism? Did we barely have any Hashimoto's before cell phones? Yeah, when Cruz was in, what was it? In medical school. Hashimoto's was a very rare disease. It was a rare thyroid disease. Now it's one of the most common ones. Super common. Again, what do people do? What's right here? What's right here? Thyroid. And what are they doing? Blue light therapying the thyroid. Maybe that's why it's far higher. And again, it's really close to the surface. So the blue light that penetrates 4 to 6 centimeters, it's going to get in. It's going to have an effect on those thyroid cells. And it's going to destroy the mitochondria there because blue light inhibits complex 1, which means you're going to create a lot of free radicals there. So, yes, blue light is thyroid destruction. What else? People who don't get any UV and IR, this messes up their hormones. And if you mess up your hormones, you never turn off the sex steroid hormones. Again, that's not a bad thing because we're also talking about dysregulating receptor sensitivity. You'll also bald. Again, Cruz gave the answer in the Huberman podcast, the one he did with Rick Rubin and Huberman. It's all there. Basically, POMC dysfunction due to modern society. That's all. That's all. Oh, and the last thing that confuses people a lot is they say, oh, it's genetic, it's genetic. I would say that it probably has to do with heteroplasmy. That if you're born from a mother who has shitty mitochondria, what happens is that, you get more problems. We already know this. One of these problems could be that you bald early. Is it because of genes? No. It's because of your mother and father's decisions, mainly your mother and her mother. That could be the case. I wouldn't pin it down to genes. I would put it down to mitochondria. Why? Because they handle everything that happens in a cell. Not everything, but genes are sort of there to regulate metabolism. As far as I understand. I guess the second question would be, and how would one go about reversing it according to your knowledge? Stop the blue light, stop the EMF, live like an isolated and primitive tribe. Now, I understand that you won't do that in modern society, which means you simply have to change your environment to accommodate the most important factors. So, again, stop using Wi Fi, use Ethernet, stop using blue light, make sure your night dark cycles are good, spend more time outside, and make sure your skin gets exposed to light. Again, we don't have any hair, probably tells you that, we need the light on our skin. Make sure the light in your that hits your eyes and your skin is all good. What else? Yeah, that's mainly it. Red light therapy on the affected areas is also really good. Like that one as well. Thoughts on using Starlink? Okay, Starlink is really interesting. Starlink is really interesting. It uses 10 to 14.1 gigahertz to communicate with satellites. Now, I'm going to say something very interesting. There are EMF meters on the market, and most of them measure below 8 gigahertz, below 10 gigahertz. The only one that measures above 10 gigahertz is the millimeter wave meter by Safe Living Technologies. And that one measures 20 to 40 gigahertz. So then, here's the question. Why isn't there any meter that measures 10 to 20 gigahertz? Why does it cost $20,000? This may be why. They don't want you to detect where they're using satellites. Okay? They don't want you to be able to measure that. So from what I understand, the Starlink uses the Ku frequencies, or the Q band. KU, and then dash, and then band. And that's, again, 10 gigahertz to 14.1 gigahertz. That can't be detected by any meter, unfortunately. Do we even know that it's there? Difficult to say. We do know that they're going to use frequencies that satellites use, and we do know that we can't measure them, which means it's probably that. It's probably between 10 and 20 gigahertz. That's why on the market, you don't see any meter that measures these, unless you go to some very specialized companies where, only companies can order from those companies, and it's $20,000 and the thing is big, which obviously is not an EMF meter, it's just something else that measures that range. You'd need to keep it basically 30 meters away from wherever you are, I believe. You'd need to build a kind of thing that, how do I say, a Faraday cage that isn't really a Faraday cage, but you put up metal on the sides of it so that there's no leakage to the sides, or at least less leakage to the sides. Because again, you want it to beam upward. You don't want anything to come to the side. So to fix that, you sort of put things on the side. Imagine a dog collar, okay? The dog collar that goes out like this. You put that on the Starlink, made of metal. You would do that. Then I believe the Starlink itself has Wi-Fi. You turn the Wi-Fi off. You can do that. Once you've done that, you route an Ethernet cable down to your router. You make sure the router has no Wi-Fi on. Then you ground the router. Okay? Copper connected to the metal of the router. Thick cable. Okay? Thick copper wire. Goes to a copper rod that's quite long and quite thick down into the ground, as deep as you can get it. And you clamp that strongly, the copper wire to the copper rod. And then you measure. You measure, is there any radio frequency? Have I really turned everything off? And is there any electric field? Again, we're grounding it to remove the electric field. And if you can ground yourself, that's also perfect, because ideally you should be grounded as well. And if you do all that, I think you can use Starlink in quite a healthy manner. It's just, you need to test. You need to take all these precautions. What's the next question? Would a 80 to 90% seafood diet in high latitude at winter times be optimal? Well, you see, what's interesting is that when I say seafood is the best, or when anyone else says seafood is the best, the person whose work we're relying upon is Dr. Michael Crawford's work. Also, the data one has gathered for oneself. I mean, feeling better, seeing other people feel better when they eat seafood. That's a huge one I've seen. Whenever people eat seafood, like I even posted about this, people eat seafood and then, oh my God, the dreams are insane. People getting better health outcomes. Many people just, their acne goes away if they start eating more seafood. What does that tell you? That tells you that just ruminant meat isn't optimal. At least not in these cases. At least at that time. That's what it tells you. If consistently you see that relationship, I'm not saying it's the DHA, I'm not saying it's the selenium, maybe something else, maybe it's something you've eliminated, who knows? There is something in there that's more optimal. For me, I'm seeing a pattern where it's more optimal for everybody, which means it's a requirement for human beings. Or it may indicate that it's a requirement for human beings. But even Dr. Michael Crawford says that we need land animals for arachidonic acid because that fatty acid is also very important for brain health. So 80 to 90%, I don't see any I don't see any issue with that, to be honest with you. You'll have to see how you're feeling. If you suddenly start craving beef, because what happens is if I eat seafood many days in a row, say a week in a row, I usually do 2 meals a day. At some point, I will feel like I want beef. Maybe it's a zinc thing, maybe it's carnitine, maybe it's creatine, who knows what my body wants. But it wants the beef. And so I eat beef. And then if I continue eating beef, my body goes, oh, I want seafood. So Michael Crawford isn't saying that we ate exclusively seafood. He even says in my interview, there's a balance of both that needs to be had. But to answer your question, because your question has nothing to do with what I said, would an 80 to 90% seafood diet in a high latitude at winter times be optimal? Depends on the human being, obviously. But could you try that? Yes. Given the opportunity, would you live in the jungle of Paul Rosalie for a year? Ah, my friend, I have these beautiful people right here that I cannot leave for a year. Can't. If I was able to do my job from the jungle, sure, sure, why not? I think it would be a great experience. I don't know about a year though, like 3 months would be better. But I don't want to leave my beautiful people. Top three movies slash TV shows. I don't know how much I like that question. I don't know how much I like that question. But I will say this. Do I think there are movies that can be life changing? Yeah. Do I have good memories from some of them? Very few. And those are the ones I'll mention. Goodwill Hunting hit me pretty deeply. I remember holding back tears when I watched it at, I think it was 14 or 15 years old. We watched it in school. Yeah, and in Sweden, we watch a lot of movies during school, during class, I mean. Not every day, obviously, but they do show us them. We once watched Mulan in high school, which was fun. It was in the social sciences. We were going to write a paper on equality and all that. And so the teacher showed us Mulan. That's the first movie. The second movie would be Kimi no Nawa, definitely. And I guess the third movie. This is gonna come as a surprise. Again, I didn't watch many movies, and if I did watch movies, I watched the same movies. As I became an adult, I just stopped. But when I was younger, I used to obviously watch the same amount of movies as any other kid. Kung Fu Panda 2. Kung Fu Panda 2. And that's not a kids movie. That is not a kids movie. I'm just gonna write a thing real quick. Um, let's see what's going on in the chat because the questions on Skool are, yeah, they're done. Back to the chat. I haven't been looking at the chat. Obviously, I was in school. Let's see what's going on. Are all diabetics leptin resistant? I mean, if you're a type 1 diabetic, you're not necessarily even, no, you're not even, no, you're not insulin resistant, from what I understand. You just can't produce insulin. So when you say diabetics, if you mean a type 2 diabetic, I'm guessing that's the case because they follow from each other. Yeah, I'm guessing that's the case. The way you reverse that really quickly, by the way, is just through cold exposure. Like, seriously, if you look at you read the diabetes section in the epipaleo rx, and you realize that diabetes is simply just hibernation mode. That's what it is. You become insulin resistant, you put on a bunch of weight, you become insulin resistant, and you shoot up the blood glucose levels to act as antifreeze in the cold. And then you don't eat, okay? And then you get exposed to cold, and then by the time winter's over, you're normal again. So it's just the winter system. It's just being stuck in eternal August. Yeah. Yeah. Go read that book. Go read that book. Go read that section. It's amazing. Once you realize this, you go, oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And then you know how to reverse it. For those who are asking about a certain debate, my answer is no. And it should be clear to any virtuous viewer here why that is. I speak to people like Stephanie Seneff. I speak to people like Darko. I speak to people like Scott Zimmerman, to Michael Crawford. I speak to Sarah Pugh. I speak to Laszlo Boros. Who else? Yeah, even Varis Ahmad. I have no problem speaking to Varis Ahmad, obviously. And I don't need to follow up on what I mean by this point. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if we could forget about this topic and this question, you would be doing me a favor. Thank you. GLP-1 bad choice? Yes. Yes. Are you single asking for a friend? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. It's just the way, like, gentlemen, I'll just say this to everybody. Our generation, especially what happened in 2020, like, it's difficult. Like, it's not about a girl liking you or you liking a girl. It's just a problem. Like, the pool just got is this small right now. It's this small. Where are you gonna find someone? And it's not like I'm not worried about all that stuff that most people are worried about. I'm just worried about the health of my kids. I'm just worried about the probability of finding someone that's going to be healthy enough for that. Actually, I'm not worried at all, to be honest with you. Based on my circles, it should be easy to find someone, but you get the point. Is cooked seafood harmful? Cooking is not harmful. Cooking is not harmful. No, it is not harmful. Otherwise, if it was harmful, you would see that isolated and primitive tribes who exclusively cook their meat have a bunch of issues, which they don't. So the Australian Aborigines, the who else? The Hadza, I mean, even the Maasai cook. And then someone asked about salt. There's this funny video about the Nanet's tribe doing the, well, not, no, actually, I would say fascinating, where they're doing this reindeer ritual, right? And they're sort of, they've slaughtered this reindeer and now they are consuming the meat raw as they do in their culture. And this man is preparing the liver and he sort of, what is it? When you do he just cuts into the liver slits he cuts slits into the liver, then he takes salt and he salts the ever living hell out of the liver and also the blood. And the primal dieters go, no, why are you ruining the meat? No, obviously, god bless anyone who's trying to do good for their health. I know any primal dieter obviously has good intentions, and it is not my place to sort of make fun of anyone. But I'm just saying that salt and cooking are they're not bad. They're not unhealthy in any way. They're tools. They're tools you can use. Does that mean everyone should couldn't do them? No. Everyone should experiment and see what works for them. Let me go back to school. Building on what we Lucas, I can't say any names. Now I said your name. What would the difference between light air hunger and strong air hunger be? Pros and cons of both, what to choose, which one gives overall better effect on the nervous system? Well, overall better effect on the nervous system, I would say light air hunger most likely, or just meditation in general. Strong air hunger is, how do we say? I would say it gives you quicker results because it puts your body in a state where it needs to handle higher CO2 concentrations, which means the adaptation is going to be stronger. But that's the rule. I mean, you put on more weight, you can do less reps. So you do a stronger air hunger, you can do it for less. But is it going to make you stronger? Well, it's going to allow you to lift more heavy weights for fewer reps. You're going to become better at that, I would say. But in this sense, uh, me personally, I would just say do both. Do we know exactly what the pros and cons are? Yeah, one takes longer, one takes less time. One is more sort of discomforting. The other one is more comfortable. Yeah, that's what I would say. There's not much. There's again, it's gonna be individual. For most people, though, if you want to be on the safe side, you do light air hunger because strong air hunger, you can start to increase your blood pressure or get a headache. People can get those reactions. Oh, this is a good one. Have you ever read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse? I finished it yesterday and it actually reminded me a lot of your way of teaching. That truth can't really be taught. You have to experience it yourself, and everyone has to walk their own path. Hear it, read it, try it out for a long enough period. This is in parentheses. Works for you, plus makes you feel good. Stick to it. Doesn't make you feel good? Probably not the best for you. I'm curious what you think about it. Well, if he wrote such a book, again, I haven't read it. My guess is that what's going on is he understands the Buddha's teachings and he's just sharing them. And anyone who does so, I mean, I sincerely think the teachings are great. But I again want to emphasize to anyone who's listening and is religious is the Buddha has been turned into a deity by, or deity is the right pronunciation, I believe, by many people. He's not. The Buddha is a word which means the enlightened one. The historical figure is Siddhartha Gautama, and he was just a guy who told people helpful things. That's it. Like, for example, well, he did a lot of practice. So, how do I explain this? So, say you go on your own journey, right? And then you discover a bunch of things along the way. Then now you have friends, family, or people that are coming up to you. and they're expressing their problems. Well, you're able to help them, right? And so this is what he did. But he discovered something so profound, so amazing, so helpful for any human being that he got a large following. And historically, we kept his teachings because that's what his followers did. And so it's the exact same thing here. Like, if you ask me, is the carnivore diet healthy? The first thing I'll tell you, because this is going to be the most helpful, is try it out and see what happens. Obviously, I'll tell you to fix your environment as well so that you can beta oxidize correctly because, you want your circadian rhythm to be working well. Otherwise, I don't know if your mitochondria will be able to handle anything really. Well, at least not for long. You try it out and then you evaluate. And then in the meantime, of course, you can read about, theories. Okay, what happens when I remove carbohydrates? Okay, well, I increase ketones. Okay, I'll spike insulin far less. I'll be getting more fat. I'll be getting less deuterium. I'll be getting less anti-nutrients. I'll be eliminating a lot of these foods, etc. I'll be changing my nutrient profile. Okay, so I'm gonna get these symptoms here, or maybe not these symptoms, but I'm gonna get these effects, and maybe I can interpret them with this theory. Okay, but ultimately you'll have to do the experiment and see what happens, and then maybe it's a one-to-one match, and all is good. But again, it's the same thing here. You try out his teachings, and then you see what happens. But no, great book that you've read there. What about carcinogens from the cooking process? For example, when a steak is seared. It's quite clear to me that although we may see this as a carcinogen, how do I say this? I mean, you could even call tryptophan. Some people even call tryptophan a carcinogen, I have heard, especially from the repeat community. And tryptophan is a amino acid that's naturally occurring in tissues. So does it really matter if you have the Australian Aborigines eating it their whole life without any issues whatsoever? I don't know. You'll have to see. Do I think this entire cooked byproduct thing is very overblown? Yes. Do I think it would be a good idea to reduce the amount of oxidation when you cook? Yeah, I think so. I think steaming would be better. Steaming and boiling would be better than just frying the hell out of something. I think so, yeah. But again, I mean, if you're doing everything correctly, worry about that should you wish to, or don't worry about it, but think about it if you want to. But if everything isn't dialed down, then put your energy elsewhere. You don't really need to think about the raw versus cooked thing. And if you want to do the experiment, go ahead. It's just that, I mean, personally, if you ask me, just the person you're asking, I wouldn't put much thought into it unless you have fixed everything else. What are your thoughts on 20 to 4 fasting, which would mean that you fast for 20 hours and then you have a 4-hour eating window? I think it's good. I think it's good. I don't see any issues with it. I mean, that would basically be one meal a day. If you're going to eat several meals, you probably want 5 to 6 hours before or between meals. You don't want to keep them very, very close, which I think, 4 hours would be three. You would probably be 3 hours because you'd sort of at least want 1 hour to eat. With your circadian rhythm, it can be quite difficult because it's good to eat breakfast sort of before UVA rise. And so, you know, if you eat 3 to 4 hours later after a big breakfast, I don't know how much space in your stomach you're going to have. So, me, I would probably do 6:18 or 8:16, something like that. Hey, what do you think about piercing for earrings? I would never do it. Never do it. I don't see any. The body is an electromagnetic system, completely electromagnetic, everywhere, everywhere. And so, if that's the case, you don't really want to be putting things like that near your body. Gold may be a different story, crystals may be a different story, but metal, like the standard metal, I don't know. Funny all the food questions, and food is what maybe only 25% of the formula. What do you think? The importance of food is going to depend on the person in question. Okay? So, say someone is vitamin D deficient. I mean, food isn't gonna do that much for you. Okay? What example do I want to give? But if someone is DHA deficient and they're doing everything else correctly, they'll probably mitigate the DHA deficiency. But would it still make a big difference for them to add in DHA? Yes. So then food becomes a lot more important in terms of their situation. So again, food, it's gonna depend on what your issue is. And what I'm saying, what I have learned from Dr. Jack Cruz and what I have confirmed for myself and others is that the problems we face in modern society are not primarily driven by nutrition. Nutrition is lower on the list. I think what happened in 2020 is far bigger. I think EMF is far bigger. I think circadian misalignment is far bigger. I think indoor living is far bigger than food by itself. This doesn't mean that food doesn't have an impact. It just means that I'm saying that these things have a bigger impact. Mhm. Let me go back to school and see what's going on. If we have a new question. Nope, nothing new. I got a stomach bug and it didn't go away until I started drinking 3 grams per liter salt water. I crave salt so much I feel like I could literally eat a bag of it. What should I do? I only eat raw meat. Eat salt. Like, here's the thing. If you eat salt and you feel a lot better and you have no symptoms and you continue to feel better and better and better eating salt and you're craving salt as well, you don't need to ask me. Eat salt. But obviously, don't overdo it. You're all good. You're all good. Did you got the jab? Yes. That one you should guess. I have a very old video about this. Do you have any advice for seborrheic dermatitis? Yeah, check your bun to creatinine ratio. Check your vitamin D. Also, your alpha MSH. I'm guessing all of those are low. Oh, and the ratio is bad, of course. But only eating grains and having sunlight is worse than a very good diet and less sunlight or not. See, here's the thing. You seem to be representing this perspective of sunlight. It's not about sunlight. It's not about sitting there sunbathing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about light in general. Okay? And now the main light source for humans is the sun. But if I say sunlight, you'll think I mean, beach, sun, clear day, all that. No, 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 no. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about light, dark, and temperature. We're talking about the clock up here running perfectly. We're talking about circadian gene transcription happening at the optimal time. We're talking about redox. We're talking about the flow of information and energy in the body. Okay? We're talking about all the things that come before food. Because as they go into the mitochondria, they all become protons and electrons. All right? So it's not about sunlight better than food, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you need both, but it's not more sunlight or less sunlight. It's about what is your electromagnetic environment. Remember, in the Amazon rainforest, it's mostly cloudy, it's mostly raining, and the indigenous tribes are mostly under trees. They're still getting perfect light because that's all coming from the sun. They're getting direct sunlight, when they're at rivers on certain days, but not always. Are you interested in debating other YouTubers in the primal space? That's a good way to put the question. I don't think debates are that helpful. I think if you look at what people who, respectable figures in the community, for example, Anthony Chafee, Ken Berry, Paul Saladino, if you look at their collaborations, they have discussions, okay, that are not emotionally driven. And should I have a discussion with someone, a friendly discussion, that is not emotionally driven, that is there so that both of us can learn and educate others, I think that's perfect. Can I live on almost only beef, heart, and brain to save money? Yeah, of course you can, but I don't know if it's optimal. You'll have to do the experimentation. Maybe adding octopus makes you feel better. Who knows? Barine, you're like a perfect candidate for the community. Not telling you to join. I'm just saying you're a perfect candidate because this deep autogenous physiology that you're communicating here in the chat is highly inaccurate. I have no way to make easy water right now. Would you recommend me drinking tap water or plastic bottled mineral water? But you're making easy water. Your mitochondria are making them all the time. It's just you need to optimize that function. That's the whole story of hydration. As opposed to high quality water, yeah, if you can't get anything, if your tap water is unclean, yeah, get water in plastic, but if it's Evian, that's better than fluoride filled tap water, obviously. Because it's an inaccurate brain because it's not rooted in any kind of physiology. You see, I'll give you some physiology. The Bohr effect. Low CO2 levels, oxygen doesn't go away from hemoglobin. High CO2 levels, it does that. So CO2 directly controls oxygenation. That's called the Bohr effect. That is established physiology. Very established physiology. We know, for example, that there's oxygen in the air. You remove oxygen, humans die. We need oxygen. That is established physiology. We know there is collagen in our skin and our bones and other parts of the body. We know it's the most abundant protein in the body. That is physiology. But how do we say? Um, the blood only delivering oxygen and nothing else to the tissues, and the lymphatic system doing everything else, which is autogenous physiology, that is completely false. For example, So when we talk about physiology, again, does anyone know fully how the human body works? No. Will we know fully how it works in 1,000 years? Probably not. But is this why we need to be careful about what we say about how the human body works? 1,000%. So when you see someone who just says, this is detoxification, and that is detoxification, and this is detoxification, it's a red flag. Ahmed, the answer is it does not matter one bit. You don't need milk. Milk is a tool, it's a food, and you can consume it, and you can do the experiment with it. But does anyone need dairy? No, not at all. If raw milk is not available, you can just go, okay, yeah, it's not available. Bye bye. It's like octopus. Like, is octopus available? Oh no, octopus isn't available. How would you feel if octopus wasn't available? You just feel like, oh yeah, octopus isn't available, so I can't eat octopus. Or if giraffe isn't available. I don't know if there's any culture that eats giraffe, but giraffe isn't available. Okay, yeah, I don't need giraffe. Same thing with raw milk. Raw milk isn't available. Oh yeah, it's the same thing as giraffe not being available. It's the same thing. You don't need any of them. I can make the comparison in terms of how it's viewed in the head, how it's viewed psychologically. Because that's the way it is for me. Oh, dairy isn't available? Yeah, it's just like giraffe isn't available. It's nothing I think about, it's nothing I sort of go after. What would you say are some essential foods for young athletes, and what's your opinion on supplements? Okay, so I want you to rephrase that. You said, what are some essential foods for young athletes? Why did you phrase it that way? Could there be other things that are more essential for young athletes? All right, I'm gonna end the stream now. I have to pick up my chicken and pay for it. God bless all of you, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.